I'm Phil Gale. Welcome to the programme. Ukraine's energy and justice ministers have resigned after being named in a corruption investigation into the energy sector and after President Zelensky called for their dismissals. Kyiv's taken a tougher stance against corruption in recent years, and the European Union has made fighting graft an important condition of membership.
Safes and briefcases stuffed with cash, seized as part of an alleged $100 million bribery scheme. Ukraine's anti-corruption investigators are looking into the role that Justice Minister Herman Haloshenko, seen here on the left in archive footage, may have played in the scheme when he was Ukraine's energy minister. The conspirators allegedly took kickbacks during the construction of protective structures around energy facilities to shield them from Russian air attacks. The alleged mastermind, businessman Timur Mindish, is a former associate of President Volodymyr Zelensky. Mindish is thought to have fled the country. Prosecutors have detained 5 people and identified 7 suspects, including Energy Ministry employees. Ukraine's government is sensitive to accusations of corruption, fearing they could undermine international support in its war against Russia. President Zelensky called on both the justice and energy ministers to resign.
First of all, there should be maximum transparency in the energy sector and in all processes. I support every investigation by law enforcement and anti-corruption bodies. I believe that the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Energy cannot remain in their positions. This is also a matter of trust. If there are accusations, they must be answered.
For Ukrainians, the scandal is especially bitter as Russia again targets energy and heating infrastructure, causing widespread blackouts as temperatures drop.
Andrii Borovyk is Executive Director of Transparency International Ukraine. Transparency International is a non-partisan, non-profit organisation dedicated to fighting corruption. He joins us from the Ukrainian capital. Welcome to DW. Could we start with your reaction to this case?
It's of course shock. This is my first reaction was, but from the other hand, there is pluses and minuses. The good thing is that actually those anti-corruption reforms that we were implementing as a country last 11 years for now is actually bringing the results. That's for these anti-corruption institutions were established in order to follow the money within the top higher level of the government. That they're doing this, and this is one of the demands to Ukraine from European Commission, according to enlargement report that was recently published, and this is good. The dark side of this thing is that we still have this systematic corruption, and especially we feel it as Ukrainians because it's done in the energy sector while we're staying without electricity for hours or even days, depending on the region. So I truly hope that this investigation will also bring us a little bit of prevention that will show that nobody can do what they were doing, these guys who are the suspects, those 5 suspects, and many of other schemes will be stopped even without knowing that.
All right. So this is the year, though. It was in this year that President Zelensky tried to weaken the independence of 2 Ukrainian anti-corruption bodies, including the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, which conducted this investigation. This investigation also named Timur Mindish as the central figure, and he's known to have had close ties to the president. Do you find that concerning?
Of course, it is impossible to look at this case without remembering what was happening in July this year when there was an attempt from Verkhovna Rada and the president actually to limit the independence of the institutions. But in the end, actually, all the reforms and changes that are happening in Ukraine are happening not because of our politicians. This is just because of the people. So people were able to protect those institutions, and this actually also shows those who were at the protest that they were not wasting their time. And this is what makes for me much more important. Another good thing that I guess that after this case and with the recent today's statements from the president that he supports all these investigations and supports that those 2 ministers are resigning, and also that he may impose sanctions on them, is like a positive move. A little bit later than I expected. I would expect such hard reaction, let's say 2 days ago, because this scandal runs last 3 days, but we have something, and this is good.
There are also reports that Mr. Mundic has business ties to the defence sector as well as the energy sector. So do you expect investigations and revelations to continue beyond this case?
Based on the statements from the prosecutor in the courtroom where parts of the wiretapping were announced, there might be some misconduct within the defense sector, but there is nothing specific now, and all the claims now are about the energy sector and construction there, and money laundering, which is about $100 million. Whether they can be in other sectors, it can be, because also the NABU said that they have more than 1,000 of the hours of these conversations. So maybe later, when there'll be enough of evidences, we will see other cases. That's why we also say that this is probably the biggest case of the last 10 years. So let's see. Let's the law enforcement do their part first.
Okay. Last year, your organisation scored Ukraine 35 out of 100 on your corruption perception index, which sounds bad. What do you see as Ukraine's main problems with corruption?
Yeah, it sounds bad, but comparing to where we were during Yanukovych era, it's plus 10 points. It's still quite far from average in the European Union, but we slowly moving forward. What are the major obstacles? I guess they're at the political level, because not the laws are voted and made by the parliament. In the parliament, there is different interests, and unfortunately. And quite often there is lots of different obstacles involved in that or in other rules. Most of the anti-corruption reforms are also not about the law enforcement, but about the transparency and improving the system in different sectors. But during the war, it's not so easy to do that due to war constraints and lack of the people, lack of the resources. So there is a long line of the reasons. There is no one magic stick why and how we can stop the corruption in the country. Okay. It's a systematic problem.
Understood. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrii. Andrii Borovyk from Transparency International, Ukraine. Let's go straight to the Ukrainian capital. We can join our correspondent there, Nick Connolly. Welcome, Nick. So quite the day for government resignations in Ukraine. Just bring us up to date.
I think it was inevitable that they would have to go with, there had been a kind of preliminary step where these people had been suspended from their duties but not fully sacked, but that essentially now happened. And I think it was inevitable because the pressure from public opinion was just too big. This is really a scandal that has caught public attention in a way that lots of corruption allegations don't. The fact that you have all these wiretaps, you have these extraordinary conversations between these people alleged to have been behind this corruption. The fact they gave themselves often pretty extraordinary kind of nicknames. The head of this alleged kind of money laundering group called himself Carlson from a kind of Swedish children's book. The other one had a nickname Che Guevara, amongst others. The kinds of conversations about how they were going to hand over money, that all is very real, feels like a bad film, and something that people are really talking about in real life, and is not just something that is being spoken about by the kind of usual suspects, the anti-corruption activists and kind of political pundits. This is really something that people are speaking about on the street every day.
Right, and a government corruption scandal is exactly what the president of a country at war trying to convince his allies to donate millions doesn't need.
Well, exactly. And right now we're talking about energy and protecting Ukraine's energy infrastructure, which is being hit week in, week out by Russian missiles. There is also the expectation that this is going to grow. The anti-corruption bodies that have done those wiretaps and that have basically put all this out there, brought these allegations to light, they are hinting that there is more to come, that this same Timur Mindic, who has managed to escape the country just before the other arrests and before his own house was searched, he was also involved in drone manufacture. So potential there for this to also encompass the defense sector. And that is obviously something that Ukrainians are just not going to accept at a time of war, that not only is their energy system being undermined by corruption, but also the weapons that lots of Ukrainian soldiers need every day, that lots of Ukrainians are fundraising for all the time to make sure that the people on the the front lines have enough, that is a field for corruption for people connected to the highest levels.
Yeah, tell us more about the public reaction, because as you hinted there, this goes above and beyond the normal, if I can put it that way, corruption that seems to go on in Ukraine.
I think it's just very colourful. It is very relatable in a way, because you have those wiretaps and you have these quotes basically just doing the rounds on Telegram, on other social media, and it just seems incredibly kind of tight-knit and kind of brazen. Even though they've got nicknames, they are speaking about things in incredible detail and seemingly not doing huge amounts to hide. There is a real sense that those protests, maybe some of our viewers will remember in the summer, there were protests because there had been an attempt by the kind of administration, the presidential administration around Zelensky, to take away the independence of those anti-corruption bodies. And lots of people now connecting those dots and saying this was because they knew back then that those investigators were getting close to people, close to the president, and that's why they wanted to basically take that independence away and stop these investigations in their tracks. And I think the really damaging thing for Zelensky here is that this man at the center of this, Timur Mindic, is a former business partner of his when Zelensky was in show business. This is someone he co-owned companies with. This is someone he has a lot of personal exposure to. So this is not just some apparatchik, some person he met once or twice at an official occasion. This is someone who has deep, kind of history with Zelensky, and that makes it all the more dangerous for him. And I think that's why Zelensky now is trying his best to come down hard on this and to show that he is not trying to, kick this into the long grass, that this is something that he is taking seriously and not trying to water down. Whether or not Ukrainians believe him and take it at face value is another thing, but certainly this is a moment of real political danger.
Thanks, Nick. And Nick Connolly in Kyiv.